All right, you guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is November 4th, which means tomorrow is November 5th, 2024, which is election day. That's crazy. Happy election eve. And honestly, I've thought a lot about what I want to talk about today because there are stories out there to talk about. I mean, Trump was on Joe Rogan, Kamala Harris hung out with Beyonce, all sorts of things. But it just feels weird to talk about that stuff with the election tomorrow, but we're going to talk about it anyways. And then we'll also touch on the fact that millions of people have already cast their vote, and in 36 hours, we're going to have a new president. So yeah, all of that. But first, you already know this is your reminder to subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up. It is a totally, completely free way to help your girl out. I truly, greatly appreciate it. If you're listening on Spotify, give this show a rating and a review over there. All of my other social medias are linked down below, as always, if you want to check me out on any of those. And with all of that, my name is Noelle. This is Just Say No. Let's dive right in. Okay, so I am recording this on October 31st. So as of today, Kamala Harris has not gone on Joe Rogan. The current standing is that she wanted him to come to her. She only wanted it to be for an hour long because God forbid she talks for any longer than that. She does enough damage in 1 hour. Joe said no. He said that if she wants to do the show, she can come out to where is he? Dallas? Houston? Where is he? I don't know, actually. Austin. I think he's in Austin. And so I don't know if that's happened by the time this episode goes out. If it does, I'm sure it was a train wreck. JD Vance is reportedly going on the show today, and I'm sure that will be fantastic because he is an excellent speaker, unlike Kamala Harris. But all we have right now is Trump. I'm not going to go super in depth on what they discussed because it was 3 hours long, and honestly, it just felt like a regular conversation. This was the most, regular, I don't know another word to use to explain this side of Trump. It was such a human side of him. It wasn't apprenticeship Trump. It wasn't businessman Trump. It wasn't President Trump. It was just Donald Trump. And I think that it resonated with a lot of people. I saw a ton of comments of people saying stuff like, wow, I've never seen the side of him. I can't believe that I bought into all of he's a racist, fascist, Hitler bitch boy shit from the media. So I do think that it had a positive impact. Will it sway the election? We will find out tomorrow. I will say that Rogan also did a really good job of keeping him on topic because Trump, it's been deemed the weave, we all know, has a habit of, here's the question, he's going to go over here and then over here and then over here and then over here. Sometimes he comes back here, not all the time. Sometimes he ends up way over there. And Rogan did a really good job of, trying to keep him on topic and bringing him back to the conversation at hand. I've never seen anyone do that with Trump, and it was pretty successful, I would say. Not all the time because it's still Trump, but he did what he could. Honestly, whether or not it had an impact on the election, the reaction online alone made this completely worth it. Because the overall commentary from the left is that Joe Rogan sucked up to him, didn't push him whatsoever. The most delusional comment that I saw was somebody claiming that Joe Rogan is most certainly voting for Kamala Harris after this episode because he just looked miserable and there's no way that he's going to vote for Trump. And you've obviously never watched the Joe Rogan Experience in your life. If you think that he's casting a vote for Kamala Harris, you've absolutely lost your mind, which makes sense. I mean, most of these people have, right? If you're voting for Kamala Harris, there's obviously a disconnect from this to this. I'm just saying. But as far as Joe going easy on this, I say this as somebody who is a regular listener of the podcast. Joe is not a journalist. He is not a reporter. He is a dude with a podcast. And that is the way in which this came across. He was the same with Trump that he is in every other episode. The only difference I would say is that it was a little bit more structured. It felt like Joe actually had specific questions that he wanted to ask him, which I'm sure he does have questions for certain guests, but it definitely felt like he was more intentional about trying to stay on those questions. So if anything, I would say he was a little bit harder on Trump. I mean, I'm not saying he was hard on Trump because he definitely wasn't. Joe Rogan is not known for being hard on guests because, again, he's not a reporter or a journalist. That's not what he's there to do. He's there to have a conversation. And that's what he keeps saying about Kamala Harris. He's like, I just want to have a conversation with her. Like, I'm not going to, seek to destroy her. And he wouldn't have to, because she would destroy herself, because she can't even have a conversation. Like, that's just how bad she is at this. All of the people who are expecting an adversarial interview or expecting him to push Trump are sorely disappointed, simply out of ignorance, because they don't know who Joe Rogan is or the structure of his show. And honestly, the fact that that is the gripe just goes to show how good of a show it was. There's not really much here to criticize. It was entertaining. It was funny. Did some of it drone on? Absolutely. Because again, Trump can yap. He can go on and end up over there. And I totally acknowledge that and own that. But for the most part, it was a different side of him. It was a more human side. It was a more laid back side. His guard felt like it was down, and it was a different side of Trump. And I think it resonated with quite a few people. Now, again, will it impact the election? I don't know. I did see some people on X saying that it won't, because Rogan has a primarily male demographic, and this is an election that's going to be decided by women. And I don't know that I completely, fully agree with that. I mean, first of all, is Rogan's main demographic male? Yes. But the main demographic of most podcasts, statistically, is male. That's just the way that cookie crumbles. Especially when it's more like news-related podcasts, it's gonna be a higher percentage of males listening to that. Now, that said, do I think that people who don't usually listen to Joe Rogan listen to this podcast? Duh. This podcast, last I checked, had 33 million views, and that was like 2 days ago. So I'm sure it's way higher than that now. And Joe typically gets maybe 1 million on YouTube, at least. I don't know what the Spotify numbers are. So yes, obviously more people than usual tuned into the podcast, and that is going to include more women. And that is true for almost anything that Trump does. Case in point, I am a woman. Hi, in case you couldn't tell. And I have never listened to Andrew Schultz's podcast, Flagrant, but I did listen to the Trump episode of that podcast. And I think that the same logic applies more so to Rogan's episode with him. I mean, this was highly anticipated. So to say that it didn't reach women, I just don't know that that's true. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it is true that it didn't reach women. I think that, yes, women are going to be highly influential in this election, but also Joe Rogan's listener base, and this is what I've been saying, that it's important that he goes on this show. He has a lot of middle ground listeners. His listeners are not strictly right-wing or Republican, because Joe Rogan, people forget, this is a pro-choice, pro-universal healthcare, pro-universal basic income, Bernie bro guy. Joe Rogan is not far right-wing extremist, even though they paint him that way. His stances simply just don't align with it. All he does is criticize the government, and so of course he's right-wing. So yes, of course he has listeners who are more liberal, more middle of the road, and those are the people that we're going after, male or female. I don't know that it comes down to sex as much as it comes down to just people who are independent voters. And I just personally don't understand how your mind is not made up in this election, but they're out there apparently. And I do think that this was an important show. And that's why it's crazy that Kamala Harris won't go on it. I guess it's not really that crazy, because she has, her bombing on podcast has continued. We did an episode a couple weeks ago rather, showing the like to dislike ratio on the podcast that she's going on, and it has continued. She did one podcast, I don't even know the name of it, but it had twice as many dislikes as it did likes. Like, this trend is continuing on. People don't like her. She is so she's just so unlikable. It's impressive, actually, how unlikable of a person Kamala Harris is. But anyway, since we're on Kamala Harris, we might as well talk about the other side of this conversation, because while Trump was sitting down for 3 hours with Joe Rogan, Kamala Harris was having a party with Beyonce. And it's just rich how delusional people are. I saw this buffoon on X comparing the live stream of Kamala Harris's rally to Trump's rally. And Kamala Harris had like 2.5 million viewers, and Trump had like 14,000 or something like that. And it's like, did Kamala Harris have 2.5 million viewers, or did Beyonce have 2.5 million viewers? Can we be honest about this? Because people did not show up and show out for Kamala Harris. Beyonce was literally there. So I keep saying, I'm begging for somebody, anybody on the left, to be honest and to be for real, because this is a joke. But that aside, I do think that people are quite exhausted of the celebrity endorsement thing. I mean, in the last couple days, so many celebrities have come out for Kamala Harris. You got Beyonce, you got Leonardo DiCaprio. There's more, but I haven't really been paying attention because I don't care about celebrities. And it's kind of odd because a lot of them have ties. Let's just say J-Lo came out in support of her. 2-1 P. Diddy. So does that mean anything necessarily? I don't know. But is it an interesting thing to note? It is. It is an interesting thing to note. Because it's just a continuation of the trend of the types of people that are endorsing each candidate. But the celebrity, I have just hammered this one home on this channel for months now, how meaningless it is when a celebrity endorses a candidate on the right and on the left, because these people simply just don't understand the impacts of the policies that they are advocating for, because they are so far removed from reality and from the struggles of everyday Americans that, of course, Taylor Swift's biggest concern is LGBTQ rights. Why wouldn't it? What else would it be? You know, like what else is it going to be other than that? And once again, this election is majority about optics, and the optics of, in the same day, Trump sitting down with Joe Rogan and having a 3-hour-long conversation, and Kamala Harris trouting out Beyonce to do her bidding and then speaking for a grand total of maybe 30 minutes are bad. The optics of that are poor. One candidate is sitting down, having a conversation, talking about everything. Nothing was off of the table. Policy, previous terms, future terms, mistakes made, everything under the sun was talked about. Nothing was off the table. And the other one is having a party with Beyonce. I mean, come on. I mean, it's something. I can smell the desperation off of her from here. Truly. Like, it sounds me that this election is as close as they are saying it is, but I guess we'll find out tomorrow how close it actually is, won't we? Which brings us to that conversation. It blows my mind that 4 years of Joe Biden have come and gone. I mean, it feels like just yesterday that the 2020 election happened. I remember it like it was yesterday, and here we are going through it again. But I do want to talk about this for just a brief moment before we close out the episode. This is a shorter episode. Tomorrow's election day. I mean, there's not too much more to talk about, and we just kind of have to wait and see what happens tomorrow. But I know that a lot of us are feeling anxiety, and regardless of which way this election goes, come Wednesday morning, a large portion of our population is going to be in despair. So I just want to close this episode with the reminder that whatever happens is God's plan. It's hard to fully trust that, at least for me, in times like this, because you want to be in control. You obviously want things, especially things that carry this much weight, to go your way, because if it doesn't, there's a lot of fear that comes with that. But whichever way this goes, it is the way that it is supposed to go. Even if, let's just hypothetically say, Kamala Harris wins and the way in which she wins are illegitimate, that's God's plan. Whatever happens is the way that it was supposed to happen. And we just have to have faith and trust in God that he knows what he's doing, which sounds so crazy to say, but we're human, and it's hard. It can be so hard to have that constant trust. So having a reminder to give it to God, and we've done what we can at this point. As long as you've gone and cast your vote, that's all you can do. There is nothing more that you can do other than go and cast your vote. I mean, you could knock on doors and stuff, but the election's tomorrow. It's over. We're done. So, yeah, guys, I will talk to you on Thursday for the Thursday reaction video, and we will chat again on Monday, and we will have a new president. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens, but that's all I got. So see you in a couple days. Bye.